You are now tuned in to the Project 365 experience.
Stacy,
What's up?
what's up? Welcome to the pod. I'm very excited I get the chance to finally talk to you. It's been a while. Like we were talking a little bit before. I've been keeping up with everything you've been doing, especially during the pandemic. You know how the pandemic was. Everybody's on their phones looking and then I'm seeing like, obviously where I first got a look and just got a peep of what you were doing. It was really during the pandemic, and that was when leagues were trying to figure out how they were about to continue operating and all that kind of stuff, right? So a lot has been happening in your life right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's been crazy. This is kind of what I expected getting into this industry. I mean, everything I've ever done, it always feels like it's been accelerated. And part of that is probably my own fault. I don't really take days off. I'm kind of still like an athlete in that sense. So I guess if you work 2 extra days a week, then a lot of people, things tend to happen faster.
No, for sure. So talk so especially in sports, right? You're looking at being a woman in sports, and there's definitely a lot of challenges, and I am very fascinated and I'm very in awe about how certain women are able to push through kind of like male dominated industries. So um talk to me about how important it is for someone like you to just be able to be one of those references that women can kind of look into in sports. And it's one of those things that you don't really think about it, but once you sit back and you get feedback, you're like, oh shoot, people are actually looking and taking inspiration from what I do.
Yeah, honestly, when I started in basketball, the intention was never to like inspire people. And I love that maybe that I've
Mm-hmm.
been able to be that person for people now. But
Yep.
my intention coming in the industry was just to shake it up a little bit in the sense that I feel like a lot of guys, maybe they resonate with women a little bit better. Maybe they were raised by women. Maybe they had unfortunate loss of women in their life. And maybe they just trust women more. I think that my approach to being an agent might be a little bit more family oriented for that reason. It might
Mm-hmm.
also be, I don't know, I guess I probably get a little bit more emotionally invested in the business than a lot of other do. And, that's probably product of being a woman, but also product of being my mother's daughter. I think it's important
Mm-hmm.
to hire people outside of the industry too. But I think most importantly, it's to empower the guys and give the guys the opportunity to sign with somebody that they can trust. And maybe that just happens to be a woman.
Mm-hmm. It's so funny because like, I think, I got the opportunity to coach girls at one point in my career. And I remember, I would just have the discussion with some of them to talk about how important it was to, they've some of them have never gotten the opportunity to be coached by women, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there's a lot of guys in sports that have never gotten the opportunity to get assistance by women. So it's
Mm-hmm.
also like very interesting that you're saying that, because I think like even for me, like that family aspect, like you're saying, that caring, that emotional investment, I think in a lot of situations, I think a lot of young boys can use that. And now you're going into your field, you're dealing with men, and that same feeling is still something that a lot of them resonate with. So I find that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I find like even in, I mean, it's been a short career, I guess, when you look at from like a time perspective, but I feel like I've done a lot. And in every situation I've put myself in, whether it was with Guelph, whether it was with Newfoundland, or even as an agent, I feel like my players or my clients, they've opened up to me about things that I can help them with that they may not be as comfortable opening up to
Mm,
a man about. And even situations
mm-hmm,
where I was coaching, there's things that go on a basketball team that they don't necessarily like want to share, but if you have that kind of trust with them, if you have that sort of friendship with them, like they're more inclined to let you help them. And I think that's like a big part of like the athletic culture, especially on the men's side, is like not being willing to open up, not being willing to talk about like mental health needs and that kind of thing. Whereas they perceive it as more common on the women's side of the industry. So if I can be that bridge, if I can help them get the things that they need, whether it's for me or somebody else, I like to be that person for them, because I know in certain circumstances they would not have gotten through what they were going through if they didn't have a female outlet to actually talk to about it.
That's huge. That's huge. So let's talk a bit about like what it is that you do. So let's educate people. Is it agent? Is it player rep? Is it like, what is the term that you would say that is
Honestly,
more common? Yeah.
my most common title, I would say, is definitely as an agent, but in the sense that I got a really non-traditional start in the industry, because where I'm from, when I was growing up, there was no entertainment industry. Like since then, there have been a couple different pro basketball teams. We've always had hockey in Newfoundland, but I was never involved. I've never had any experience in hockey. So even just figuring out what roles actually exist in basketball took me a little bit of time, because I just didn't know. I'd never seen it. I'd never understood it. I didn't know that being an agent was a thing, to be honest with you, growing up. I just assumed that players got their own contracts. I
For
assumed that
sure.
people called them on like their house phone, I don't know, and was like, hey, you're good at this. Like, come
Yeah.
play for us. Like,
Yeah. No, that's 100%. Like it's that's why I'm interested in diving with you about the process of how everything is. And so I want to know, like, you played a little bit, and then you got the opportunity to coach, but like at what moment did you decide, okay, I'm gonna head into being an agent full time?
so for me, I had an interesting start, I guess you could say. Again, coming from Newfoundland, I moved to Toronto when I was 20. That wasn't necessarily to work in basketball, but the year that I moved here happened to be the year that the Raptors won, which obviously piqued my interest as like a former basketball player. Like, how can I be involved? Like, this is amazing. Look what it did for the city. Look what it did for the culture. Like, how can I be a part of that? And so I decided that I was going to like work for an agency. I wanted to be on the ground with the players, because I know when you work for a team, usually you only get them for a year, you only get them for one season. And in terms of what I like to do, like build that trust with them and like actually impact their lives, I felt if I was an agent and I worked on that side of the business, I could have longer lasting relationships with them rather than just one season in and out. And I think you can make a significant impact that way too. But for me, I like the aspect of having, the ability to maybe use the platform of basketball with these guys a little bit more than just like a single year contract.
Right.
So I actually did really want to work for MLSE. I really did want to work in the CEBL. I eventually did get to work in the CEBL, and that was amazing. It was
Right.
right after I found out I had been certified. So I took advantage of that opportunity, but knowing that this was like the beginning of the end, that after this season, I wanted to dive into being an agent. And again, a lot of that was just to try and help people utilize their platform, and have a longer lasting impact. I still potentially might work for a team one day. My goal is to be the GM of an NBA team. But for me, that's like a longer term goal. When you look at the agent space, most agents, it's their second career. They're already like 35 to like maybe 50, 55. I got certified when I was 23. So even 10 years from now, if I decide to be a GM, I would probably still be the youngest GM in the league. So
Yeah. Yeah, I know. A lot of time to go for sure. For
yeah.
sure. And like, so then what did that process? So again, you said you just got certified. So like not just got certified, but you got certified like young. So
Mhm.
like how was that process like? Like how does someone go about becoming certified?
So it's really funny whenever younger women ask me, or kids in general ask me, like, how did you like figure out how to get certified? I always laugh because it's the stupidest answer. I literally just Googled it.
Yeah.
I, I had nobody to ask. So I was
Hey,
literally on
yo.
Google, like typing away, trying to figure it out. And I came across the Players Association website, like the NBA Players Association website. They actually have a page that has it like the whole process perfectly laid out for people if anybody's interested in checking that out. But essentially, when I did it, and it's changed a little bit since, I essentially had to do this like massive application. A lot of it really intimidated me because it was like, where did you go to law school? And like all these things. I didn't go to law school. At that time, I didn't even have an undergrad. I had to
Mm-hmm.
finish all of my undergrad courses in one semester leading up to the exam to even be eligible. So
Mm.
because you do have to have an undergrad. That is one of the requirements. But I asked them, it was like, if I can finish all my courses before the exam, can I write it? And they're like, sure, as long as you can send us proof that you passed.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that. I finished it. Once they approved me to write the exam, which it took months for me to actually find out that I was approved. They do a very thorough background check of everywhere you've lived, everywhere you've worked, where you've gone to school, all of that kind of stuff. So once I did find out, I didn't know how to go about preparing because I didn't have anybody that mentored me in the space. So I literally just started reading the collective bargaining agreement between the NBA and the Players Association, all glorious 600 pages of it. The first time I read it, I didn't understand a thing. I had never read legal documents before at the age of 23. So I didn't understand much, but I just like took notes of all the things that I didn't understand and then started Googling those things. Then I found out that there's this amazing document called the Larry Kuhn FAQ, which actually answers a lot of those questions that people like me didn't understand in a way that like I could understand.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just started going back through it. I went through it twice. I definitely drastically over prepared. I spent months studying for this exam, but that's what I was used to. I had just finished school. Like
Oh
we're
yeah.
used to studying all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was during the pandemic. So what else are you going to do that's productive?
Yeah. Trust me.
Right? I
Yeah.
studied this thing for months. And then when it came to the exam, I was terrified. Like you ask anybody in my circle that knew I was doing it, which was very few. And I was so afraid to write this exam because I was so afraid to fail that I didn't even tell a lot of people I was writing it. And then when it
Yeah.
came to the exam, I was so over prepared that it took me like an hour less than expected to write the exam. And I passed, which means I got more than 80%. So clearly I have nothing
Hey.
to worry about.
Yeah. No, like the over preparing, like definitely something that that I get for sure. Like, so you write this exam. Okay, then what are the next steps after that? You write the exams, like do you get a call? Do you get like how does that work?
So it was funny because a lot of
Does the commissioner of the NBA call you?
not quite. And it's actually really funny you say that because none of us actually knew how we were going to find out. There's about like 200 people or so every year that write this exam. At the time, I don't know what the pass rate is right now. The terms that I had seen online is that usually about 50% of people pass. And like that was terrifying to me. If 200 people are writing this, that means 100 people fail. Like these people have gone to law school. Like I was terrified. So we had no idea. Literally every day I'm just refreshing my email. And I was talking to some of the other agents. I'm like, did you hear anything? Like, what if it goes by alphabetical order? Like my last name's closer to the end. Like, because I started to hear that people thought they passed and it was always the people with the names in the beginning. So eventually they did send me an email. It was actually really ironic. I was watching the Last Chance U basketball, the first season, and I'm like sitting on my couch like watching this like in tears because it's such an amazing series. And then I check my email just like refreshing after an episode and it was like congratulations, you passed, and like it was my certificate.
What was that moment like?
It was surreal. I didn't know what to do. I was staying at my parents' house at the time, but there was nobody home. So I'm just like sitting there like freaking out with like nobody to tell this to because nobody knew I was writing the
Yeah.
So like I remember my mom came home and I just like ran out. I was like, I passed. She's like, passed what?
Holy. So
Yeah.
you so so oh man, that must have been like an amazing moment. Like so you study for so much, you invest so much time. It's almost like a like you know how it is with playing, right? You prepare for certain things, you win a championship. It's almost like one of those things, right? So okay,
Mhm.
so then boom. Okay, now you're certified. Now you got you know you passed the test. What came next?
So interestingly enough, nobody actually teaches you how to be an agent. You
Mm,
study the rules of getting guys contracts and largely you study the salary cap and like understand how like the exceptions work. Nobody teaches you how to be an agent, like to be completely honest. Everything that I knew about being an agent was through complaints of friends of mine that played that they said, my agent doesn't do this. So I
mm-hmm.
basically took the opposite approach and everything that they complained about, I made sure that I did right. And that was kind of my thought process getting into the industry. Like, yes, I'm younger than everybody else. Yeah, I'm a female. But I can't be worse than these guys. So I used to write down the complaints that people had about their agents of like, I'm not going to do that. How do I fix this problem? And that's kind of the approach that I took. And then it was just, obviously being willing to like reach out to the Players Association and ask for help. I always make sure I have the most accurate information, because a lot of people are a little bit too proud to ask and they don't give players accurate information. Me, on the other hand, if you ask Kirk at the Players Association, he would laugh about how much we talk. Because I'll even sometimes I'm like, this is my question. I think this is the answer. Can you just give me like a quick yay or nay? Like, just want to make sure.
Yeah, just want to be sure for sure.
Yeah.
And so okay, you sign. I don't know what the technical term, so that's why like I'm learning as we're speaking. So start asking questions, start figuring out how the process is going to go. Let's go this way. When do you sign your first player? And how was that?
It was a funny experience, to be honest, because I was working for the Guelph Nighthawks at the time. And we had one game against the Edmonton Stingers at home, and I didn't travel with the team because I was the director of player personnel, but I wasn't like a lead assistant or anything with that team, so I didn't travel. And it was actually my birthday, like July 13th of 2021, and I was given the task of doing the scout for Edmonton, which is something that I'd been begging them to let me do. Like, I did my shit, like, let me do the scout. Like, I lived in Edmonton, like, I know these guys, it's the same players year over year, like, let me try. And then it was like, oh, they finally gave me the opportunity on my birthday when I would love to go celebrate my birthday. But I spent all day making this scout, and largely the scout was to stop Xavier Moon. Like, that was, at the time, the 2-time MVP of the league. Like, they had just won. So it was like, how do we stop him? How do we make somebody else beat us? So the head coach and I came up with this very comprehensive plan on how we were going to stop him. It didn't work. We lost. He didn't. He had been setting like the record points, though, like multiple game after game, like league record. He did not set a record against us. So to me, that's a win. We did make the other players beat us. So that's fine. And then I thought about it. Like, I had just gotten signed. I had known him previously anyway, mostly through like friends of friends, because he played in the NBL before that, and I had a lot of friends that had played in that league. And I reached out to him, but I asked him, I was like, have you signed a contract for next year yet? Because to my knowledge, he'd never played anywhere even like first division, which blew my mind, because the first time I saw him play in Edmonton in like 2019, I was like, this guy's an NBA player. And everybody told me I was nuts. They were like, he's like 6 foot, like he's way too small, like it's never gonna happen. If it was gonna happen, it would have happened by now. At this point, he's like 26. I looked up his current agent. I asked him who his agent was. I looked him up. He wasn't NBA certified. And I asked him, I was like, isn't your dream to play in the NBA? And he said, yeah. I was like, well, the agent that you have can never get you there. Said, interesting. I was like, can I see the contract? In the contract, there was a clause that said he could hire an NBA agent because that guy wasn't certified. He just had to let him know. So I was like, go tell your agent I'm going to represent you on the NBA side. He's like, honestly, like he had met me when I was doing door-to-door sales. So he was like, if somebody's going to get me into the G League, it's going to be you. So honestly, go for it. So it took me like, I had gotten really sick actually right after our season ended. I don't know if it was COVID. I wasn't well enough to go find out. But I spent the next 2 weeks in bed just dying with this flu, but I had nothing else to do but try and find the emails, the contacts to every single G League team. I had nothing else to do but cut the film of him playing against G League players like Lindell Wigington, like Cat Barber, and these guys that he had won those matchups. So I sent this out, like a scouting report, film, everything to every single G League team. And I said, listen, you have these guys on your roster already. These guys are killing you in the G League. Why would you not want the person that just beat up on them all summer? And then at first, like the first couple teams got back to me. They're like, sorry, like too many returning players, blah, blah, whatever, already signed our E10s and that kind of thing. And then slowly I started getting some traction. Like, of course, they were like, who are you? And then once I kind of told them, like, I just passed, like, blah, 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 whatever. I'm Canadian, he's playing in Canada. I know him. It's all good. Talk to him if you don't believe me. They're like, you know what? Like, I think we'd give him a tryout. Like, if he's as good as you say he is, like, we'll give him a tryout. So he started getting interest from a lot of teams. We ended up with like half the G League interested in him, which is crazy because everybody told me it would never work. Nobody was interested get him. We've tried. Nobody wanted him. Like, clearly you didn't try that hard. So we literally narrowed it down to our top 3 teams, and he went to tryouts with them. We were positive that he was going to sign with another team. I had actually I flew out to go to that tryout with him because I thought that's who he was going to sign with. And as we're walking out of the tryout, this other team, who obviously ended up being the Clippers, called me and they're like, listen, we know you're walking out of that other tryout right now. What do we have to do to get him to commit to us right now? And it was crazy. It was like a movie moment. And, you know, they didn't know we were together, like physically in the same place. So like I had them call me, listen to them. Then I had them call him and see if they told him the same thing. It was identical. So I was like, you know what? I believed them, and they stayed true to everything that they'd promised him. And that was the start of his G League NBA career.
Man, it must have been such a like you said, the feeling. And I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, even like I can relate to that because even me, like, so I do a lot of recruiting, right? And a lot of times it's just about when you can get kind of 2 people connected. To me, I feel so good about that. Like, to me, that's my thing. I'm like, oh, I feel good. I'm able to kind of like bring these 2 people. I don't want anything from it. As long as these 2 people are able to like both achieve what they want to achieve, like I'm like, yo, I feel so good about that. So that must have been like a surreal moment. I can't imagine how it is. Like, literally, people told you give up and
Yeah,
you didn't.
people told me that it was a waste of time to sign him on a SPAC, which is like a contract with the NBA. Like, it's me, him, and the NBA. That's the contract. They're like, it's a waste of your time. Why even put in the paperwork? Like, he's not even going to make the G League, let alone the NBA. And if anybody knows anything about me, if you tell me I can't do it, I promise you I will, and it'll be a lot faster than you expected.
Yeah. For sure. Holy man. So how okay, so this is amazing. So you obviously this you have one player that now goes to all these things, right? So now I'm assuming now like your credibility starts going up. Now people are like, yo, you got somebody to the NBA, you got somebody to the G League. Yo, there's now more people. So you as an agent now, like how many people are you able to represent, if that makes sense? Like obviously there's the agency, but like how many people um can one person represent?
I think that's a different answer depending on the person and like how much time you have to invest in it. Me, I've purposely kept my roster very small, like as I'm starting out, as I'm building, because I want it to be like organic growth. I could probably have 40 clients right now if I wanted to.
Right.
I don't think that I personally, in this growth stage in my career, could take care of that many people in the way that I want to.
Right.
So I started with one. Once I got Xavier to the G League, I signed another guy. But it's all been natural. Like, all of my clients have come to me from referral. And
Yes.
that's largely because of the job that I did with him, because once he got to the G League, it was crazy. Like, even my credibility with teams like skyrocketed. They were like, we thought you were full of shit. Sending like 6 foot, like 165-pound point guard. He was 26, which is like way older than most of the players in the G League at the time. And they're like, but you were right. You know, like, you were right. He took over the league, and 2 months later, we got his first 10-day contract. So now he went from supposed to play in a 2nd division league in Europe to he's playing in the NBA. Like, so not only do like the younger players maybe of similar position or similar story, like he's a small town guy, maybe they resonate with that story, but the teams are also like, she's onto something.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like, so this kind of like this is very interesting that you said what you said. You know, you kind of want to keep it small, especially in your growing stages. I think it's kind of like also your approach because like from what I know of you, like you actually take care of your clients. You actually are there for them in different ways that I think like it's not just kind of like that exchange. I'll give you an example. In if let's say somebody's a trainer, right? I've seen the trainers that have the most impact on certain players are the trainers that actually go watch their games, actually sit there, actually have those conversations. Hey, you know, you should be doing, you know, this was good. You should do that, giving them the feedback and all that kind of stuff. I get that same feeling from you because I see that, you know, you do travel and go to your players' games. You talk with them, you communicate. They're almost like family, like you said.
100%. Yeah. It's
So
just the atmosphere we've built up. Like, they treat me like family. I treat them like family. And I'm blessed that, honestly, all my guys communicate with each other. Like they're so supportive of each other, even when they play against each other. It's so sweet, like to have both teams, like both guys on both teams, like come out and like get a picture together after the game. Like that just makes me happy. Like they have, I've never played pro. I played and I coached at the pro level, but like they have experiences that I'll never have, and I like for them to be able to share that with each other. And they're very open to doing that. So honestly, I'm really blessed for the guys that I do have. They make my job so much better.
For sure. For sure. Like when it comes to like let's say a player has to like all the extra stuff like marketing and advertising and all that kind of stuff, like do you like, I don't know, is it legal, like do you kind of partake in some of those things, like?
It depends on what they want.
Okay.
Largely because I am young and I don't have the experience that like a lot of people have to have expertise in that field. I do typically have partners in different areas that work with me on that.
Smart.
So I definitely help facilitate their marketing, like create the documents to have them marketed and that kind of thing. But in
Smart.
terms of like connections, like I know for a fact that my people in LA have better connections in LA than I
Oh yeah.
do.
Oh yeah.
So I would rather like earn less or potentially nothing at all and make sure that they actually get that opportunity. So whether it comes to like legal advice, like I can get you lawyers, have access to lawyers. I've done that. When it comes to marketing, if you need help with your marketing, if you want to talk to somebody about branding, social media, PR, like any of that, I have a person for you that's an expert in that field. And while I do have, a background in sales and marketing, and I could do that myself, I want to make sure that my guys get the best that's available.
Amazing. Amazing. So now obviously you go through all of this, but now you got this new project, I'm gonna call it a project, that just came out last week. Talk to us about this new project. I'm gonna give you the floor, plug yourself.
All right. So last month, May 30th, I actually went ahead and incorporated my own agency, which is called Leawood Sports and Entertainment. And that's actually in collaboration with our test management group. So the beauty of that collaboration is I didn't feel like there was anybody in the industry that was offering my players what I think that they deserve in terms of resources. I don't think that a lot of agencies have an ecosystem built out in the sense that they have much beyond like representation and marketing. Typically, that's pretty much where it ends.
Mm-hmm.
Where it doesn't make sense to me. Like, why don't we have financial advisors for them? Why don't we have somebody that can help them start a business? Like, why don't we have tech people that can help them? So I actually also during the pandemic built a great relationship with Meta World Peace just through LinkedIn, which is another funny story in itself. I ended up, his son was actually my third client, I think. He was
Yep.
one of the first people I signed. And we just built up a relationship from there. I had done like odd things for him. Like when he had a beta testing of his app, he needed Canadian players. So I had introduced Canadian players to his app and that sort of thing. So we built up a relationship that way. And he started telling me about like his family office, which is called our test management group, and just like all the different verticals that he has in terms of things that people that work in that group have access to and that their clients have access to. I was like, this is exactly what I want in an agency. I want my guys to have access to all of these things, like whether you want help investing in real estate, investing, period, whether you need help with your taxes, especially my international players, my Canadian guys, you need cross-border taxes. Like there's a lot of things that they need and can benefit from. And he had all of those things. So we just kind of put a plan together. He had always wanted to have an agency as part of our test management group, but he never felt comfortable enough with somebody to like start it. And I told him, I was like, I have to do this regardless. I need to do this for my guys. Like, do you want in or not? And he was like, of course I do. He's like, I know that I can help your guys. Let's do it.
Yeah. So like, oh man, this is great. So like, what would you say like is the goal? Like, are you looking to, okay, let's get certain players to this level? Is it just are you looking to, obviously you're in the starting phases, but like, are you looking to expand into other things? Like, where's your creative mind taking you?
Honestly, so many places. Every time I talk to anybody, I'm like, I could do that. My guys could do that. That could help them. So honestly, like obviously starts with like core basketball, like representation, but I want to expand, and in like maybe some ways that people haven't thought about. Like, I don't understand why there is such crazy turnover between athletes and their clients, and also why they kind of don't have necessarily any help transitioning into life after sport. Unless you're an NBA player, the NBA does a really good job of that. And being a part of the Players Association, it made me realize like that's like a really needed service. And who better to help guide my players to life after sport than Meta World Peace? He's been
Mm-hmm.
there, done that. He's done it very successfully. He's a very successful entrepreneur right now.
Right.
So there's just even in like improving the longevity of the relationship with my clients is something that I want to do. Taking care of players after their athletic retirement, because there's a lot that they want to do. They have passions and they have interests that they don't know how to monetize. They don't know how to use their brand to get those opportunities, but we do. So why not maintain those relationships? I've been approached by, let's say, 3 or 4 other sports, like athletes of other sports, saying like, hey, would you represent somebody, in this sport? And I personally want to focus on basketball, but I wouldn't mind at all having somebody on my team that does other sports. I think the
Mm-hmm.
same problems that athletes have in basketball that they for sure have in other sports. Basketball is
Yeah.
like the most progressive sport right now in terms of athlete empowerment and that kind of thing. And I think
Mm-hmm.
actually a lot of the ideas from the NBA, if we could take them and bring them into the NFL and into the NHL, it would actually make for a better experience for a lot of athletes. So there's
Right.
definitely room for growth, whether it's just like expanding like my personal career beyond athletic representation. But it's still
Yeah.
early, so I don't want to bite off more than I can chew. That's
For
like the
sure.
one thing that I'm really good at controlling is making sure that the clients that I do have access to me 24/7, whatever they need, and I don't want to
Smart.
change that. So
Yeah. Smart. So I got 2 last questions for you.
sure.
Okay. First one is in one word. What is one thing that you take pride as an agent when you represent your clients?
Empowerment, for sure. I want them to understand. My guys don't get left in the dark. They understand what different contracts are, what's available, what negotiation is going on, who I'm talking to, all that sort of stuff. In a way, I'm kind of training them to be an agent after their career, but I want them to be aware of these things. Like, I think it empowers athletes if they understand the business of basketball, and then also just like empowering them to use basketball as a platform. And I've said it in interviews before, but when you think about it, like one basketball player, especially depending on where they're from, especially if they're an international player or a small town player, you obviously affect the lives of your family, but you can affect the lives of your community, sometimes your country. Like a lot of times you can make a global impact if you're big enough as a platform.
Mm,
And I don't see any reason why guys shouldn't be able to do that.
yeah. Um, Next one is, what does Stacey of now say 20-year-old Stacey?
That's a tough one.
Mm,
That is a tough one because I feel like everybody knew, and this is the feedback that I get when I go home now, is we always knew that you were going to do something a little bit unconventional as a career before you did. Um,
mm,
so I think the one thing that I've learned, um, and I don't think it's something that I didn't necessarily know, but something that's very prevalent in like my current life, is just like trust your journey, honestly. Like opportunities don't come up for no reason. They come up for you to capitalize on them, to push you in a certain direction. So just trusting in your work ethic that, when you do things correctly, like you will be rewarded for that. Even if you have to go through some adversity, that doesn't mean you're not doing the right thing. It just means that there's another barrier that you have to break for you or somebody else. So I would say trusting your journey as an athlete, as an agent, even as like a coach, an industry professional, or really anybody. I think that having faith to fall back on, definitely gets you through those valleys, because there's a lot
well,
of peaks, but
a
there's a lot of valleys
lot
too.
of valleys with rivers at the bottom.
Yeah.
Stace, no, I appreciate you. Kid, plug your social media. Please, people, go take a look at what she got cooking, because really good follow on social media. So anything that you want to plug in?
Well, my personal Instagram is what I've used up until this point to promote my players, which is just my name. It's just Stacey Leawood. But now I recently created an Instagram account for my new agency. That's Leawood Sports Entertainment. That will be where I'm transitioning most of my player content to. However, I do love them dearly, so I'm sure you will still see them on my personal page too.
100%. Stacey, you keep up the good work. I've gotten the chance to, keep up with everything you've had going on. And like I was telling you, pre interview, there's so much good that you're doing. I think you don't even realize how much of a representation like you are, and how much of a like you can really take this like to places where it's unseen. And I think even for me, like just being able to just keep up and just see everything that you've done, I've gotten to know you a little bit. Like I'm really proud of what you keep doing. So you just keep pushing. Sky's the limit for you.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Hopefully all the things that I'm going through to get to where I'm trying to go, it just makes it easier for the next person coming behind me. So whether it's because they're small town, Canadian, a woman, or just somebody that didn't think that they could do it, that's the goal, is just to make it easier for them.
Appreciate it. And we'll definitely keep talking soon.
Awesome.
Again.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into this episode this week. If you enjoyed, leave me a 5-star rating, a review, and don't forget to connect with me on Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter at CoachO365. Have a great day coaching, and remember, they could always knock you down, but they could never knock you out.